Most, I hope you've been taking good care of yourself. I've been on a hiatus. Some of you may be wondering why I haven't posted on Instagram or on YouTube. I mean, I've been posting on Instagram, but I haven't been posting much on YouTube. And number one, I want to apologize to anybody who missed me, who missed my content, who was impacted by my content, who looked forward to my content, and who I left hanging. I should be there for you. I need to be there for you. However, throughout my hiatus on YouTube, I've been doing a lot of personal development. I've been doing a lot of brainstorming and leveling up. Okay, I've been taking myself way more serious than ever before. Some of my prior ideologies and my beliefs that you see earlier, in earlier videos have changed, right? Or at least been altered to a degree. When I started this channel, I was focused on just connecting with the people, kind of sharing my current situation. I was going off an awful lot about dating and being a man and masculinity and women. And I said a lot of stuff. I don't take anything back. But as you grow and as you evolve and as you obtain more knowledge, your perspective changes. So you can't hold somebody to what they did or said X amount of time ago because things and people change. Now, that all being said, I'm fully aware that I owe you guys these videos. I owe this content to you guys, whether it just be one person who gets any value from it or it's a million people. Doesn't make a difference to me. I understand that this is my purpose and I fell off. And I, again, take full responsibility and I apologize. But I'm back and I promise you, I will not be leaving. I will not disappear. You'll see me posting on this channel. And you see me talk about, getting low amounts of views. I don't even give a fuck about the views. The views will be a byproduct of the value that I provide. Okay. If you get any value from this video, drop a like, share it, comment, hit me up in the messages, something, DM me at Wealthy Westbrooks or at Wealthy_fit. Now, to break this down, I titled the video From Lower Class to Luxury Living, right? Because I owe it to you guys to really tell my story, and maybe I can relate to you or you can relate to me and my story on a deeper level than I've exposed myself, right? So a lot of a little bit about me. Some of you have no idea who I am, and in order for me to really connect with you, I got to tell you exactly who I am and what I've been through, right? And what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. I'm going to tell you the story with the glory, and I'm going to give it to you straight up with all the scars and downfalls as well. Nothing has been perfect. Nothing has been easy. Nothing has been handed to me. I started off in lower class. Let's get that straight. Let's get that clear. I grew up in a city called Rochester, New York. That's upstate New York. Beautiful city. Trust me when I tell you, there are beautiful things about it. There are wonderful places to go. And I've talked about this before. It's not all bad, but where I'm from originally is nothing like where I'm at today. And I have nothing against Rochester, New York or upstate New York or anybody coming up in lower class. I understand what it's like. See, in order for me to really contribute to this channel in a positive and uplifting, enlightening way, I need to deliver this clearly to you guys. And it leaves me very vulnerable. But I believe it's my calling. So if you can relate to my story, perfect. I grew up in a separated house, right? My parents were never married. Okay. I didn't have the traditional mom and dad in the same household that normal kids get. Now, I'm not traumatized, right, by any of that shit. If anything, it made me stronger. But I know what it's like to have your fucking parents separate. I know what you deal with, what you go through, how you feel, what you think, what your situation ends up like. It can be a little confusing, right? I was about 5 or 6 when this shit happened, and I was younger. And I love both my parents, and they both have a lot of love for me, and they both to this day still get along. They're cordial. There's no bad blood, but I want to explain to you, you know, how I got to where I'm at and kind of what developed over time. Seeing my parents separate for whatever reasons, they just weren't the ideal match for each other. Um, Honestly, I think it did frustrate me at that time. I don't think I ever really fully grasped, its effect on me. But I think naturally it would affect you, and it affected me. I was frustrated, right? I was, confused and sad and mad, and I had so many questions, and I had a great childhood. Don't get me wrong. Like both of my parents were very present, but not having them in the same household, it led to me having to usually only go to one parent or the other, and then they'd have to talk, and it just wasn't the full dynamic that you would essentially want. Now, there's tons of you out here just like that. Some of you don't even have parents. Some of you were adopted. You don't even know your parents, or some of you don't have your God. Sorry, but some of you have lost your parents. So I'm not saying that it was the worst thing ever, right? I was privileged, to a degree. I was loved and I was well taken care of, but we were definitely lower class. Neither my mom nor my father were super well off and financially set. We had enough to, pay for what we needed and a little bit extra, decent gifts, presents, holidays, food on the table. Nobody was really hurting. We had a car. Um, I went to a private school, was costing money. And I'll tell you, my mother was and still is like the strongest woman I know. And honestly, my father too, even though he didn't stick around, they didn't see eye to eye. He has taught me a lot of lessons. Um, and neither one of my parents are perfect, just like your parents or whoever you were around or were raised by probably aren't perfect. They did their best. Okay, so I have to give them credit where it's due. Because at the end of the day, it's just all up to me anyways. It's all up to you anyway. So whatever the fuck you've been through doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if you had a separated household. It doesn't matter if you grew up in lower class. It doesn't matter. Okay, if you want to get to the luxurious lifestyle, you need to take full responsibility. Some people were given opportunities that I wasn't given or that you're not given. But so fucking what, right? And growing up, I played sports. I was on different teams. I played different instruments. I had a lot of friends. I was pretty popular, with the cool kids, and I was also pretty smart in school. So I got along with like the nerds or whatever that crowd. So I was always a bit different and unique, especially being like half black, half white. I was definitely a rare person in my area, at least in my school. It was a private school, and the private school had kids from like all different suburbs, all different areas in the Rochester area, and there's also some city people. My parents, my mother, more than my father, had decided to put me through private school so that I wouldn't be wrapped up in the city life. If you know anything about Rochester, New York, going back to it, you know, yeah, there's tons of great things, and you can make a decent life and earn a decent living, and there are nice areas where it's safe, where there's up and coming things. People respect each other and the community, and people can be successful. But it's not that it's all bad. It's just that it's not all good, and it's never gonna be all good. I don't care where you're at. I don't give a fuck if you're at a luxurious place with a pool and all of that stuff. It doesn't matter. What really matters is what you make with what you got. Now, seeing different kids coming from different backgrounds and having different upbringings showed me what I had and what I didn't have. Right. Sometimes I would go to like my wealthier friends' houses in the suburbs, right, and I'd be like, damn, they got a nice car, a nice house, or a nice TV, right? They got all this extra food, and they don't seem to be stressing. Like there's just a different energy. It's just a vibe. Like you can sense that at a younger age, right? So you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, growing up, and you're seeing your friends who and where they're coming from and what their lifestyle entails, what their parents do for them. And honest to God, you know I was never mad about my situation. I was never like, yo, what the fuck? Like, this sucks. I mean, there was a time when I was so ignorant and just such a stupid fucking kid, and I just knew that we didn't have everything. Um, and man, my mom tried so hard. My dad tried, but sometimes there'd be times when he wasn't even around. Straight up. I mean, he was definitely a present figure in my life, but there'd be times when like I couldn't just go to him when I needed him or call him when I needed him. Um, and I say that just because, not to make him look like an asshole, but just because when I put a lot of pressure on my mom, I would say I put a lot of pressure on her, and she had a lot of pressure on herself, just dealing with being really a single mother, trying to date different guys to help and also fulfill her path. So we had that type of stuff going on, and God bless everything that worked out. And just for the record, right now, like both of my parents are in a great position, great. They're set up, they're safe. They're both happy, healthy, living in a better place than before. But we started off in an apartment. You get what I'm saying? I started off in an apartment, and like I lived in an apartment, like on a it was like a really basic low level, like ground level entry apartment. Actually, no, we started off in like a second like an apartment that was on the second floor, and I know a lot of you guys are living in apartments. You're living in Section 8, or you're in the ghetto, right? Like I was surrounded by, and there's limited expectations and limited opportunities, and you kind of just got to struggle, right? The struggle was real. You know, and I mean, I'm honestly fortunate enough to say like it wasn't horrible. Right? I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to tell you that I was like stuck in poverty stricken. Like, nah, my mom had a solid job forever. We had a lot of family, we had support, but I just knew that there was more to life, right, and that there would be more to attain. And I also knew that I had a very energetic, you know, persona to me. I was pretty extroverted. I liked, talking to people, and just being crazy. And that didn't always work out in my favor, right? I mean, sometimes it was cool, sometimes great things happened. Other times I got caught up with the wrong things, got caught up with the wrong crowds, doing the wrong things, making stupid choices. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in other videos. But the whole point of this is, I started pretty much with the bare minimum, like the bare minimum. And I was given the proper guidance, through my parenting. And I mean, even the school I went to was decent as far as education goes. But it became really apparent that, especially as I started to get a little older, like teenagers, when, life really matters, it became apparent that, oh, and just to go back to my apartment story real quick, my first apartment that we lived in, it burned down. So you can imagine, like, we were just out, my mom and I were out one day, she got a phone call. They said, hey, your apartment burned down. We went back to the apartment, everything had burned down. There was only a few things left. We still have pictures that have like some of the burns on them, like, frays and ashes. So we had to move into another apartment at that time. And, my mom had like just hoopty cars, like she didn't have like new cars at that time. She had like older Hondas or like a Buick, and they were never perfect. They had like little lock issues, or the sunroof would leak or something like that. So I watched my mom just do the best she could, and I always wanted to be able to do more for her, but I just didn't know how. So that was kind of why I started like hustling at a young age, and just try to get money, and plus I didn't have much myself, so I was just like innately wanted to just get more. Um, Growing up, it became really obvious that certain shit was just out of our budget. Like we used to trip off of spending too much money on an extra gig of data, like extra $10 or $20 a month. Back when Verizon had, they would charge you for your extra data. My mom would come up to me like, "You're using too much, data, and it's an extra $10 a month, $20 a month." And at that time, I didn't really understand. Like I was probably 6, 15, 16. I'm like, okay, like But like that shit affected her budget. You know what I mean? That shit really mattered because that stuff adds up. Especially when you're focusing on on a fixed income for the most part. You know, your job is there, but it's who knows how secure it is. And you're trying to provide for yourself and for another living being. So I was just very like selfish about like myself. Really, like I wish that at an earlier age I would have recognized the importance of really being there on a larger scale for my mother, and really stepping up as a man. What I ended up doing really was kind of living like a secretive life, not really secretive, but I would just do things that I knew I couldn't really tell her because it wasn't good. Like I had to, like I used to sell weed, you know what I mean? And it wasn't even legal. It wasn't even legal, and that shit got me fucked up a couple times. Right? I got arrested a couple times. Um, had to pay a bunch of money, stress a bunch of people out. You know, go to court, do the whole lawyer thing, going to like clinics to pee clean. You know, you don't want to go through shit like that. And it's crazy now because marijuana is legal, but I was doing whatever I could to hustle. Right? I was just trying to stack my money up. I was like itching for the good life, right? And I would get my money, and my mom would be like, "Where are you getting this money from?" And it would just be like kind of this lifestyle I was trying to create for myself, which ultimately didn't get me very far. You know, doing that type of shit, you end up meeting the wrong people. You know what I mean? You end up taking losses, losing money, losing work. You end up losing friends. I've lost a few friends to gun violence. And I've known better than to be part of certain situations that I was part of. You know, we used to do some crazy shit, and I'm not saying I was out there, robbing and killing people, but I know that I grew up in a hostile environment where people were shiesty, grimy, greedy, low level, and would just do whatever they wanted to do with no mercy, right? And I was surrounded by that. Like I would see that, and fortunately, I was smart enough to not get too wrapped up in it. I had to make decisions, right? You have to make